Good morning. Good morning, members of the Committee of VROMI, other members of Parliament present, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, and those following via social media and other media outlets. Welcome to this meeting of VROMI, Committee of VROMI for today, Tuesday, February 18, 2025. I would like to give a special welcome to the representatives of the Nature Foundation of St. Martin, and we have established a quorum of 4 factions. Please stand for a moment of silence. I have received a notice of absence from the following committee members: MP Egbert Duran, MP Viren Kotai. I have received a notice of lateness from the following members: MP Irian, MP De Wever, and MP Peterson. Are there any notifications? Nope, no notifications. The agenda point for this meeting goes as follows: presentation by the Nature Foundation on the draft ordinance to be submitted to government to formalize the protection of marine areas and species, IS 229, 2024-2025, dated November the 4th, 2024. We go over to the agenda point. On November 4th, 2024, Parliament received a correspondence from Nature Foundation St. Martin requesting an audience with Parliament to discuss the aforementioned agenda point, hence today's meeting. Before I give the floor to representatives of the Nature Foundation, in order to increase the interaction on the topics to be discussed in this committee setting, I would like to suggest that after each member poses their questions or comments, the representatives of the Nature Foundation will answer directly. I give the floor to Ms. Leslie Hickerson, Manager of the Nature Foundation, for her introductory remarks and presentation. Ms. Hickerson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to present to you this morning. My name is Leslie. I'm from the Nature Foundation, and my presentation is going to go firstly over the review of the state of our ecosystems, thanks to a large-scale research project that was a collaboration with the Ministry of VROMI and the Nature Foundation itself, and then through what actions we think need to be prioritized to protect and preserve the biodiversity of our island. As an overview, I'm going to give a short background of the Nature Foundation. I'm sure everyone is familiar, but as we have people listening online and through social media, just a short introduction. The current nature protections we have in St. Martin, our local ecosystems and the results of our resilience planning research, biodiversity hotspots, and the responsibility to protect these areas. So the Nature Foundation's mission is to preserve and enhance the natural environment of St. Martin through proper management, education, public awareness, law enforcement, scientific research, and monitoring relating to all aspects of the terrestrial, wetland, and marine surroundings. The way that we operate is through a service level agreement with Government St. Martin that's managed by the Ministry of VROMI and was due for renewal in January of 2025. Our SLA deliverables have been outlined from the Ministry of VROMI to give us priorities of what we should be working on and using the subsidy provided by government to do so. These are, as such, 40% of our time should be spent on invasive species management, 20% towards research and advice, 13% on site inspections and enforcement, 13% on active park management, 7% on public outreach, and 7% on the protection of endangered species. The protected areas in St. Martin does need to be touched on because we are currently the only island in the Dutch Caribbean that does not have a terrestrial nature park for our residents and visitors to enjoy. We do have the Man of War Shoal Spa protected area, which is 31 square kilometers off the coast of Great Bay. And we have a Ramsar protected area in Mullet Pond. Though both of these are still under severe pressure, And St. Martin is party to both SPA and the Ramsar Convention through the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So our current international and local obligations. Locally, of course, we have the beach and hillside policies. These are decade-old guidelines that are due for updates. The beach policy was instated in 1994 and highlights that the beaches must be usable for everyone, both local residents and tourists alike. The hillside policy, the main objective of that policy is to conserve the green hillsides and protect and, if need, restore the natural value for the benefit of the environment, the tourism industry, and the quality of life for St. Martiners. We have the Management and Protection of Nature Ordinance, which are local ordinances that allow for extremely limited protection for species and protected areas. We have the Ramsar Convention, which is an international treaty that supports national action and currently protects Mullet Pond. This is focused on wetland areas. And then the SPA Protocol is we are a party to through the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and that can protect areas like the Man of War Shoal Marine Park, but also there are species listed as SPA protected species. Of course, we all know this. There are several reasons for an importance of a healthy environment. Primarily, one thing that is touched on by most people in St. Martin is its role for tourism. An estimated 80% of our economy relies on tourism, and our environment is what draws tourists here. The clear waters, sandy beaches, coral reefs attract millions of visitors daily. An estimated 80% of our stayover tourists engage in coral reef related activities like diving, snorkeling, going to the beach. Secondly, which is more important for the residents of St. Martin, is the climate change mitigation. A healthy marine and terrestrial ecosystem are really important in the fight against climate change. Climate change directly impacts us because it is what promotes frequent and stronger hurricanes in our region. This is something that directly impacts our residents, particularly those that are in vulnerable areas of St. Martin. And preserving the habitats is key to enhancing our resilience against these storms. Supportive fisheries. There has been a big push by Government St. Martin to address our food security, and fisheries is one of the most vulnerable aspects of our community. Sustainable marine ecosystems ensure abundant fish populations and harvesting stocks. The local fishers are struggling right now to be able to support their families and our community with fish stocks in St. Martin. And then finally, a standard of living for our residents. A thriving marine environment and terrestrial environment enhances the quality of life for our residents. Being able to have areas that they can go outside and enjoy their environment is extremely important, and healthy ecosystems provide essential resources to our economic stability. So now that we've done an overview, I'll be giving a as short as I could, a short overview of what we have been able to achieve through the Carina project. Due to unsustainable development and management practices, the consequences of climate change, and limited legal protections, St. Martin's marine and terrestrial environments are under extreme threat. To be able to address this, the Ministry of Romy worked for actually several years to put together the Rezimbid project. The Rezimbid project focused on coastal resilience and our needs assessments. To achieve the results of this project, we had 3 different sections. The first section was executed by the Nature Foundation itself. This project was the Marine and Coastal Assessment, and that was led by in-house staff and our science officer, Dr. Leticia Methon. The second aspect of this project was a terrestrial biodiversity assessment. For this, we partnered with Environmental Protection in the Caribbean, another local NGO that has a long-standing history of researching terrestrial areas in St. Martin and the terrestrial species. The third aspect of this project was led by the Ministry of Romy to do a assessment of our needs and our resilience and our vulnerability to climate change and the things that St. Martin needs to be able to succeed, both as a biodiversity area and for our community. So here I do a short overview of the key activities that the Nature Foundation and EPIC did in our separate research. For the Nature Foundation, we focused on marine habitat mapping, seagrass and coral health monitoring, mangrove and wetland assessments, and species inventory and fisheries management. Environmental Protection in the Caribbean, when they focused on their terrestrial biodiversity assessment, executed field surveys, site assessments, species identification and population estimates, literature review and historical comparisons, and stakeholder engagement and expert analysis. Another huge part of everything that we did was trying to support capacity building, both within the Nature Foundation and the Ministry of ROMI itself. So, the key findings for the Nature Foundation's Marine and Coastal Biodiversity Assessment show us that the marine environment is under threat, and action needs to be taken now to address what is happening under the water and in the coastline of St. Martin. In 2023, 85% of the reefs monitored showed a critical status regarding the live coral cover, so there was not enough live coral. Also, they showed a critical status of macroalgae cover, so actually too much algae cover to overgrow the corals. In the map that's shown here, you can see on the top left corner that there is an index of live coral, macroalgae cover, herbivore fish biomass, and commercial fish biomass. And then at the bottom, the different colors indicate the reef health status. So you can see that commercial fish biomass, regarding the access of fish for our local fishermen, is in a critical status in almost every single area that was surveyed. Additionally, the live coral cover and the herbivorous fish biomass are things to note. Along with our coral assessments, we were able to map the underwater coastline of St. Martin using a drop camera approach. So this is literally, you have a camera on a line and you drop it down. The team did, I think, more than 1,500 drops in the coastal area and lagoon of St. Martin, and we're able to create the map on the right. So on the map, you can see where there are seagrass areas, where there's coral reef, patch reef, algae fields, and sand and rubble. Through this research, we were able to show that 87.5% of the coral reef areas are outside of the SPA protected area. 69 of the Gorgonian reef areas are outside of protected area. And important to note, 88% of our seagrass beds are outside of coral protected area. Additionally, through this research, we were able to show that from August to November of 2023, coral bleaching rose in frequency over 230%. Coral bleaching occurs when the corals expel the algae that live in their tissue. It's a symbiotic relationship that normally provides, I think, 95% of the energy the coral needs to survive. When they're under stress, they expel that algae out of their tissue. So they're not able to produce enough energy. Things that cause them stress periodically here are ocean rising temperatures, acidity, pollution. Corals can recover from coral bleaching, but if the conditions don't improve, they often die. Another area that we focused on was the Indigo Bay coral reef monitoring. So on the south side of St. Martin resides one of the last remaining populations of elkhorn coral. These elkhorn coral are a SPA protected species. With many colonies present, this species of coral forms branching colonies that create complex structures that provide homes for many fish and crustaceans. However, it's an extremely sensitive species. That is why this is one of the last remaining areas of an elkhorn coral reef in St. Martin. They require really high wave action to survive properly. So a major development in the area that would include construction projects or breakwaters and increased runoff could devastate this fragile ecosystem. Sedimentation from construction can smother corals, while pollutants and habitat destruction threaten their survival. Protecting Indigo Bay is crucial for ensuring the survival of this rare coral population, maintaining biodiversity, and preserving the island's natural coastal defenses. Something that's important to know is that because this is a SPA-protected species, it is also a critically endangered species protected under the IUCN Red List and CITES Appendix. Destruction of that area could require St. Martin to apply for an exemption under SPA because we are party to SPA. This process mandates a justification for environmental damage and could impact the island's international conservation commitments. Another part of our research focused on wetlands and the marine species of St. Martin. So regarding wetlands, specifically for mangroves, extensive monitoring done in collaboration with the Reserve Naturel found that 80% of our mangroves have been lost, either through overdevelopment of the coastline or through hurricanes. Knowledge gaps are extremely prolific throughout St. Martin regarding mangroves. Lack of awareness regarding the origin and the services provided by mangroves has led to little interest in protecting them. Seagrasses also provide some of the highest levels of climate change mitigation impacts of any ecosystem in the island, yet they have zero protection for St. Martin. And health of grazer species is very important to note. In St. Martin, one of the big issues that I've brought up several times is algae growth in our coral areas. One of the best ways to fight algae overgrowing corals is to have a healthy grazer species that eat algae. That include parrotfish and long-spine sea urchins like Diadema. But since there have been massive die-offs of Diadema, the long-spine sea urchins, both in 1980 and 2022, populations are at a critical stage, and it is very difficult for us to find the juveniles of that species. We partnered with a group throughout the Caribbean, but focused in Saba, to try to see how many Diadema are in our waters, and we had some of the lowest results in that research. Moving on to the research that Environmental Protection did for us, the Environmental Protection in the Caribbean group. The terrestrial biodiversity assessment showed that St. Martin is home to over 330 plant species, 185 bird species, 20 reptile, and 23 mammals, many of which are unique to the region. Wildlife and natural landscapes attract visitors, of course, supporting jobs and businesses. Coastal and forested areas help reduce the impact of hurricane and flooding. And it showed that the need for protected areas is more important than ever. Since 1996, most remaining terrestrial areas have been developed, with no protected terrestrial sites to stop further habitat destruction. The map that's on the right here shows biodiversity hotspots. The larger the dots are, the yellow dots on the map, that is the more species found in that particular surveyed area. So you can see where there are some areas of extreme interest because of the number of species found. The report from Environmental Protection in the Caribbean had several recommendations for Government St. Martin, and I have put them into kind of 6 categories to go over briefly. First is a protected area and conservation. Establishing legally protected terrestrial sites and prioritizing Billy Folly, Fort Amsterdam, and Kupakoi would help prevent further habitat destruction. We need to also encourage land trusts and conservation easements to secure critical biodiversity zones. Their second top recommendation was continued invasive species management. Developing an island-wide invasive species control program, collaborating with the French authorities to manage these threats, like the cactus mealybug and green iguana, and to train port inspectors to detect and prevent the new introduction of invasive species. Third was sustainable development, strengthening zoning laws and hillside policies to balance economic growth with environmental protection, promoting eco-friendly urban planning that integrates green spaces and native vegetation. Fourth was native species restoration, creating a native plant nursery program to restore degraded landscapes and enhance biodiversity, protect and restore freshwater pools, forests, and limestone outcrops to support endemic wildlife. Fifth was public awareness and education, launching community education campaigns on biodiversity conservation, focusing on invasive species and sustainable landscaping, engaging schools, businesses, and local organizations in conservation initiatives through workshops and volunteer programs, and finally, continued research and policy. Expanding long-term biodiversity monitoring programs to track habitat changes and species populations, advocate for government-backed conservation policies, and integrate biodiversity considerations into climate adaptation strategies. The final section of research I want to give you an overview on is the Coastal Resilience Assessment. The Ministry of ROMI collaborated with Grant Thornton Consultants to create resilience planning tools developed to inform evidence-based policy developments for sustainable management of the marine and coastal environment in St. Martin. This research the research results of this report are due to be published after internal review by the ministry in 2025. So the first two research reports that I've gone over, the Marine and Coastal Biodiversity Assessment and the Terrestrial Biodiversity Assessment, have already been published and sent to each of you for your review and for your reference if you need to for decision making. This report